Thanks so much, Kelly. And in the spirit of homecoming, it is an absolute honor to be hosting this panel, this Gael chat with Hall of Fame coach Rick Pitino. I'm Vin Parise, as Kelly mentioned, class of 2000, and let's get right to it. And this is long overdue, but in the spirit, happy homecoming to everybody out there. And Coach, on behalf of the thousands of Iona College alumni and the hundreds that are joining us for this special chat, we've officially welcomed you to Iona College in this great city of New Rochelle.
Thank you. We just finished 2 practices today, and it's nice to be back on the court, and it's also nice to be coaching these guys because it's a difficult thing. The first year is always the most difficult, whether it was Kentucky, Providence, Louisville, the Celtics, the Knicks. The first year is always the most difficult because you're teaching 15 players a completely new system. And it's not like you have returning players who know your offenses and know your defenses, because even the seniors do not have a clue of what's coming next.
Coach, to say that the fan base and the alumni base is excited that you're leading the men's basketball program is an understatement. But what about for you personally to come full circle now back to the New York metropolitan area where you grew up?
Well, I can tell you this, and I say it with all transparency, and I was so excited when I was named the head coach of the New York Knicks because I grew up 26th Street on the east side of Manhattan, and I used to play basketball at McBurney's YMCA on 23rd Street. So it was a walk to the Garden, and I was so fired up and so excited. I was in my, I think, mid to late 30s, and I'm just as excited today because I get to finish my career back in my hometown. I think if Iona was in Pennsylvania, South Carolina, another place, even New Hampshire, Rhode Island, I would not have taken the job. But because it's New York, because every single coach that has coached here, think about it, from Jim Valvano to Pat Kennedy to Tim Welsh to Jeff Rulin for a stint, Kevin Willard, they all moved on, did great jobs, but the most important thing is how happy they were. Mm-hmm. Timmy Welsh called me to say, "Hey, I'd like to come back and work with you." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because I loved working at Iona. Kevin Willard loved working here. And Coach Klus did a remarkable job here for the 8 or 9 years that he was here." So every coach has had success. Every coach loved coaching here. And I get to not move it as a stepping stone, but I get it to end my career in a 5 to 7 year span. So for me, it's a great way to end the career, and I'm very proud to be an Iona Gael.
Coach, to say that your first half year on the job has been surreal with this COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, I guess there's so many adjectives you could use. How have you gone about these challenges? Do you think you're looking at it different now than maybe if you were a young coach taking on the challenges that college basketball faces now in our nation?
Well, positive people always say, look for the glass to be half full rather than half empty. I always say, look for the glass to be half full and find a way to fill it up. So with me, COVID, we said, how can we use COVID as an ally? That's a crazy thought. How could COVID be anything but terrible? Well, COVID for us, we had to bring in 8 players. This is a reconstruction project because we had to bring in 70% of the team. If it wasn't for COVID, we couldn't have brought in the largest recruiting class in my history as a basketball coach. And you may say, well, why do you say that? Well, because if everybody was allowed to visit different places, we couldn't get 8 guys, one from Germany, one from Sweden, one from Rwanda, Nigeria, New York, North Carolina, Florida. They just had to make a decision. I think 6 out of the 8 did not know where Iona was, what county or what state it was in. So COVID helped us in recruiting. And so not only did we look at the glass being half full, we looked at filling it up right away. So we had a better recruiting class. Now, if we had to bring in 3 or 4 guys, COVID would not have been a help. But when you have to bring in 8 and guys don't have chances to visit 5 different schools, it helped us. So we filled it up. We're excited about our recruiting class, excited about the seniors that are returning as well.
And we're going to get to that roster and what you guys were able to do in such a short amount of time remotely a little bit later. It truly was remarkable. And Coach, when you were hired in March, it was one of the biggest stories, not just in college basketball, but in all of sports, but unique times. You were never able to have a true press conference here on campus like we're used to. So a lot of fans haven't heard about how the story began from the beginning. Take us back to when you made that decision in March. Why Iona College and why President Carey?
Well, President Carey came to quite a few of my games with his wife at Louisville because he was friends with a Transylvania graduate and my business partner and one of my closest friends in life, Rick Pitino. They were friends. When the job opened up, Rick got a call and said, would I be interested? I said, I don't know. I was really enjoying the EuroLeague. And then Seamus and Matt, the athletic director, flew over to Real Madrid. So I knew it was serious. And we had a long conversation. My son happened to be there with my niece and nephew. We went out to an Irish pub afterwards. Seamus demanded it was an Irish pub, even though we were in Spain. And we spoke for about 2 hours. They offered me the job. I said, let me think about it. And then we had contractual negotiations that went into great detail on a napkin that lasted 1 minute. So it didn't take a whole lot. But I slept on it that night. I thought about it and I said, you know what? Perfect. Iona College. I've been to 7 Final Fours. We won 2 championships. I've had a great run. But my favorite 2 years in all of basketball was Providence College, away from the lines. Small Catholic school. I could walk the campus, get to know the student body, get to know the professors, get to know the priests on campus. And in 2 years, I had a magical run. 7 straight years since the inception of the Big East, Providence College was in dead last place. And then what I call a Pillsbury doughboy named Billy Donovan lost 30 pounds, carried a very mediocre team to the Final Four. And as I look back on my career, it's not the championships that stick out. It's those 2 years away from the lines that I enjoyed the most. And I'm hoping Iona can be a replica of those 2 years.
It's so funny you brought that up, Coach, because that's exactly where I was going next. Because I go back to a tweet that you sent out latter part of the summer, and you said, you know, when I walk around Iona, I'm getting so many flashbacks of those times in Providence, Rhode Island that I truly loved. What do you love about this small Catholic college atmosphere the most?
Well, you know, I went to a small Catholic high school, St. Dominic's in Oyster Bay, Long Island. I knew everybody in just about every class. It was a student body of 700. And got to know the teachers really well. It was very, very important to me that I end in the situation that I enjoyed so much. And you have to have, I had a very bad ending at Louisville, experience-wise. They brought in a whole new board of trustees and a new president. And it was an awful experience for the athletic director and myself. So from top to bottom, leadership-wise, the president had to be on board with everything that we wanted to do with the program, needed his support. I had to get to know the athletic director. And it just so happens that both guys, and I felt so old with both Seamus and Matt, because Seamus said he was a Division III basketball player, and he said he grew up listening to me speak at camps and going around, and Matt said the same thing. I grew up watching your teams play, and I felt like I was 90. So I hired Tommy Abadamarco just to feel young again.
Who, Coach, has a couple of years on you. You know, Coach, for the diehard basketball fans that are listening here, you know, they know what your teams have been about. You know, not just the success at the college level, your success at the pro level, but for the casual alum who's watching here today, you know, take us behind your coaching philosophy, what your teams here at Iona are going to be like, and your vision for Iona in the near future.
Well, a lot of people have different names for the way we play. We press quite a bit. We up tempo on offense, but defense is our staple. And we've always been a top 5 defensive team, no matter how many points we score. Because somewhere along the run to a Final Four, you're going to run into a team that stops you. In our case, in 2013, we ran into Wichita State, the best defensive team in the country. And I told my team in that Final Four game, if you want to win a championship, you must be better than Wichita State on defense. We're a better offensive team, but you must be better defensively. They had a really good basketball team. They had the young man that plays on the Toronto Raptors in the backcourt, Van Fleet. Mm-hmm. They had a young man, forward, that played for the Knicks. They were very talented. And we were the better defensive team that night. So defense, or lack of defense, that's what keeps you out of the second round, out of the Sweet 16. If you're not a great defensive team, no matter how many points you're up in that game, you're going to fold. So it all starts with defense, and that's probably the greatest trial right now for this basketball team, is learning the defense that we want to play, because we have three different presses, a matchup zone, we have a switching man, we have a blitzing man, we have a trapping man. So we have so much to teach in so little time. So the fact that the season was moved back is another way where COVID has helped us.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. You mentioned all of the newcomers and how you and your staff revamped the roster during a very short amount of time right after you got hired in this offseason. And who knows when fans are going to be able to see them play live, obviously with fans in the building. Take us behind the scenes a little bit with these newcomers that are going to be suiting up for the first time for you.
Well, as I said, we have 10 new players. We have 4 returning players, 4 returning seniors. Our backcourt is talented on offense. Asante Gist, Isaiah Ross are 2 talented offensive basketball players. Both players need to get better defensively off the ball. They struggle off the ball, but 2 really good basketball players. If there's a better backcourt in the Northeast, I'd be surprised. There may be some as good, but I don't think there's going to be too many backcourt players better than Asante and Isaiah. So that's a strength of our ball club. At the small forward spot, we got 2 guys competing. Beric is St. Louis is from the Florida area, and he's a junior college basketball player, terrific athlete, freak athlete. And he's going against Omar, who is a freshman from New York but went to school in South Carolina. So Omar and Beric are going to compete for that position. They're different. One freak athlete, the other's a very good basketball player. At the power forward spot, I think the best player is not here yet. He's struggling to get his visa. He's a 6'8" player who went to the NBA Academy in Senegal. Gorky Zhang, who played for me at Louisville, told me about him. Now he's in Nigeria waiting for his visa. Now he has to come in, quarantine, and then after quarantine, he'll join the team. He's a 6'8", 215, 20-pound forward. He can play both the 5 and the 4. He's really going to help us. Right now at the power forward spot, who's starting, Dwayne is from Germany. He's 6'7", 6'8", and he's a terrific defensive player, knows how to play the game, average shooter, which if he was a great shooter, he'd be at Kentucky. That's how good a basketball player he is. But because he's a marginal shooter, he's with us right now. And we're trying to obviously improve his jump shot. At the center spot, Rob is a transfer from New Mexico State. Rob Brown. He's a transfer from New Mexico State. 6'8", good basketball player, great guy, brings a lot of energy. He's battling Osborne, our 7'1" center. And interesting with Osborne is 7'1". He came in at 175 pounds. So we put him on the Brian Bayer diet, and we got him up to 195. And that's just in less than 6 weeks. Our goal is to get him 215 before the season starts. And he's the one young man on the team that right now, if you said to me, any of you guys have pro potential, I'd say he does, because he has so much upside. He shoots it, he runs, he blocks shots. He's just physically weak. Johan's from Sweden. 6'8", rugged, a lot different than Dwayne. He's a freshman. He's got to get quicker, a little more athletic, but he's rugged, 6'8", very physical, and obviously he has a lot ahead of him. Ryan Myers is a freshman lefty combo guard who's also very talented. Actually surprised that more schools weren't in on him because he's a lot better basketball player than his recruitment. 6'1", scores, lefty, pretty long, has a good wingspan. Talik is a 6'1" knockdown shooter, junior college basketball player. I'm proud to say with all these guys, sometimes you don't know about character on a Zoom call. You ask coaches about them, you do your homework. I'm really excited because I really like everybody as a person on this basketball team. And that's really important to put up with the schedule that we have for these guys. It's very demanding. It's a tough schedule. We have 3 walk-ons. James Carey is a sophomore. He transferred from a Division III school, Gettysburg. Parker is he was back here last year. Unbelievable young man, very good shooter, 6'3", 6'4" guard. And Jordan Brooks, who's Delray Brooks' son, who I coached at Providence. So we have 3 guys that are non-scholarship, but equally as important on the basketball team. I think I've got everybody. At 16 guys.
Well, that's tough right there, putting you on the spot right off the top of your head. And I appreciate you taking us behind the scenes and breaking down the roster like that. Coach, personally, from someone that went to college with Brian Byer in the late 90s, I could assure you at one point in his career, he was considered thin and lanky. But we're on short time right now. We have other things to get to. It's a long season.
He just gave us his formula for gaining weight. You know, I'm not saying he's heavy. He just he has a formula for doing that.
Well, you mentioned the coaching staff earlier, and let's shift there because it's really interesting how you were able to put together this mix of experience in youth and then also all of this Iona College basketball lineage within the staff. Let's dive into that.
Well, obviously, I had a snag late in my career because I hired the wrong people. I probably have 5 times more assistant coaches become head coach. I'd say 3 times more assistant coaches become head coaches than Coach K, Coach Williams, or any of them. I've had 31, 32 assistant coaches move on to be head coaches. From UCLA to NC State to Seton Hall to women. I had the first female coach when Christian Leitner hit that shot. Bernadette Locke was on the bench. My student manager and later video coordinator is today the world champions, Los Angeles Lakers head coach, Frank Vogel.
Yes.
So, but late in my career, I hired 2 or 3 people that was a wrong hire. So it was really important to me who I hired was based on integrity, not based on any abilities they have as an assistant coach, but they had great integrity, great moral fiber. And all 4 of these guys have that. And they all have connection to Iona College. Tommy Abadamarco, the Alphabet Man, was heavily recommended to me by Dick Vitale. Tommy, I've known for a number of years. He recruited Jeff Ruland for Iona. He then went with V to NC State. He worked for Louis Carnesec at St. John's. I think he's been in 17 different positions as a head coach or an assistant coach. Casey Stanley worked with me at Louisville. He's an Iona grad.
Yep.
He was jumping to get back here, not only because it was his alma mater, but because he was stuck in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And his wife is from there, and she was dying to get out, just begging him to get out. But Casey I've known for years. And then Ricky Johns was highly recommended by Steve Masiello at Manhattan College, who played for me. And Ricky's a gem. He's a jewel. So all 3 guys have an Iona connection.
Yeah.
Then our other coach, Joey Kuehl, who's I watched work when I was giving speeches around the country to colleges. He was a grad assistant at Texas, Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas Tech runs one of the best practices in all of basketball. Their coach just took over the job and took them to a Final Four. I was in Greece, in Athens, and he played my motivational speech, taped it, and showed his team on the way to the championship game. So I became close with the head coach, and I wanted somebody from his program, and Joey's the operations coach, and he's an outstanding young man as well. So I wanted not only guys that had that PhD, that passion, hunger, and drive, but guys that knew the game. And let's face it, with assistant coaches, 75% of their value is in the recruiting world.
Mm-hmm.
The rest, they all can do. They can all scout, they can all coach, they all work hard, but recruiting is the lifeline of every program. And if Iona College wants to get out of the first round and move on to greener pastures, it's all going to be about recruiting.
Yeah, it's a great segue. Actually, Coach, before we move to recruiting, we have some fans jumping in that are communicating with us here. We missed one for you to talk about Dylan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, because Dylan's not practicing right now. That's why I forgot about him. Now, Dylan, I think he's going to be a good sixth man, could be a starter. I haven't seen him play yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really, except for non-contact situations. He tore his labrum. He's just coming back. Everybody tells me he's a terrific person, good athlete, good basketball player. I think he's going to be an outstanding sixth man, or he could be even a starter if he sooner or later breaks into this lineup. He hasn't practiced yet.
And Coach, you mentioned Steve Masiello at Manhattan and other guys that have had different philosophies and success recruiting within this league. Tim Kluse went the more veteran transfer approach. What's your philosophy here? Is it, to listen, anything's up for grabs, or, there's a lot of talk, with the media about local kids, wanting to flee New York, New Jersey and go to other schools. How do you view recruiting now at this level with all your experience?
The further you get away from New York, the more attractive Iona is, believe it or not.
Interesting.
The inner city kid, they want to go away to school.
Right.
They want to go to NC State, to North Carolina. I believe in the Gonzaga, St. Mary's model. Try to take 30, 40, 50% foreign basketball players. Because I coached in the EuroLeague, I have great connections in Italy, Serbia, Greece, Spain, France, all the countries that can deliver really good basketball players. So we brought in 4 guys, Africa as well. I've had great success in Africa. So I like to bring in foreign players in the front court. I like to bring in Northeastern guys in the back court and a mix elsewhere. So I really don't care where they're from, as long as they have that PhD, as long as they're going to be great players. We have to start recruiting guys with pro potential. And that's something Iona has not had. We got to recruit some pros if we want to be something other than a average to good program.
You mentioned PhD there, and I'm glad you brought that up. And, you've been gracious enough to let me watch a couple of practices recently, and you see from the managers to the staff, there's PhD shirts going on everywhere. Obviously we've seen it in your books. For the fan that doesn't know what you're referring to with PhD.
Well, first, Alex Rodriguez was on Shark Tank, and he mentioned it. He really didn't give me any credit, because he came in when I was a Celtic coach into the locker room. He read a book I wrote about, he saw PhD, and then he used it on Shark Tank the other day. And he says, I believe in that. He stole it from me. So Alex did not give me my props. But I'm going to give the guy I got it from the props. And that's Mario Gabelli of Gabelli Assets in Rye, New York.
Wow.
I was trying to find out a bank, an investment company for Jamal Mashburn to invest his money. Flew to New York, met with Goldman Sachs in a big boardroom with 7 people, met with Merrill Lynch, met with JP Morgan, met with Payne Weber. Then I went up to my last meeting. I wasn't in a boardroom. One person came out, Mario Gabelli, and he showed me around and took me in a room where everybody was standing in front of a little monitor, trading equities, trading bonds, yelling into the screen. And I said, Mario, I tried to sound half intelligent because I knew nothing about money back then. Matter of fact, I don't know nothing about money today either. That's why I'm coaching at 68. because I own horses and I know nothing about money. But I said, Mario, where do you get your talent from? University of Chicago, Wharton School, Harvard Business School? He said, no, I don't really get into that. I look for PhDs. I said, really? PhDs for trading equities? He said, look, and he didn't use the word passionate. I look for poor, hungry, and driven people. I could care less where they go to school. So my players did not like it at Kentucky. They did not like poor. So I changed it to passionate. And that's what I'm looking for, passionate, hungry, and driven athletes who have a strong desire to get better, who have a strong desire to give great effort, and who don't think it's anything special to give great effort, because that's a given. And then I want guys that really, really want to get to a certain place that they dream about.
Great stuff and great backstory. Well, coaches, we know fans, especially this time of the year in college basketball, one thing they go crazy about on social media is non-conference scheduling, especially this level. And obviously, you know, things have been released. We know about Thanksgiving Eve. We know about playing at Fordham and at Rose Hill. Many Iona fans feel like they haven't played the Fordhams and some other local rivalries enough. You know, how do you feel about this non-conference schedule heading into year one?
Well, as I look at this, I told you COVID was an ally in certain areas. Another big reason it was an ally is the players didn't visit and see the locker room, see the offices. Since Jimmy Valvano, things haven't been touched at this place. Matt has the only good office and the women's basketball coach in the place. The rest of the place is a dump and should be blown up. The arena is very nice, beautiful. The concourse is very nice. The rest of the place should really, really take a jackhammer and blow this place up. So nobody could see these poor facilities. So what does it do? It gives me a year to raise money. So many special alumni have joined the force to help me do this place over and get us where everybody else is facility-wise. When we're done, sometime this spring, our place will look like our arena. It'll look tremendous. And the alumni here, especially about 10 people, I even raised over $150,000 from Louisville and Kentucky alumni.
Wow.
To try and help our facilities get built. So that's one thing. The second thing you mentioned is the facilities were the second toughest thing I had to encounter, because some things haven't been touched in 55 years. The second thing is scheduling. That's the toughest thing about this job. In order for us, if we're lucky enough to make the NCAA tournament, in order for us not to be a 15-16 seed, we got to do what Gonzaga and St. Mary's does. We got to play a great non-conference schedule. Now, it doesn't do you any good to go to Kentucky, go to Louisville, go to Minnesota, get your tail beat in by 20, 30 points because they're not returning the game. So what you have to do, scheduling is an art. You have to get a lot of non-conference games that are on neutral sites or home and home in the Garden. Where you go to their place, they return in the Garden. So this year's schedule's already been given. It's an albatross right now because we only play like 5 non-conference games, just trying to pick up anybody we can. So this year's out. Next year, we will play in the Disney Classic. Kansas and Alabama will be in that. 2 years after that, we'll be in the Battle of Atlantis, which always has top 15 teams. Then we're going to try to go out of Tennessee, bring them back to the Garden, play in the Garden first, go to some other place. So we got to schedule 5 to 7 games that are big-time teams. So we got 3 next year already. Now we got to schedule another 3.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Coach, with the scheduling, because some fans have been sending in questions. We had a fan from Long Island of yours write in and say, hey, Coach, would you consider for the Long Island fan base Belmont Park Arena? Obviously, you've mentioned Madison Square Garden several times. You got the Barclays in Brooklyn. So it sounds like you're open to all areas.
Yeah, I'd love to play Belmont Park because my guy is the general manager of the Great Islanders, Lou Lamoriello.
There we go.
There's one of the best athletic directors I've ever worked for. Lou is a dear friend. I'd love to get in there. That's a great thought. I'm glad he mentioned that. That's another place we can play, and that would be exciting.
Coach, in a short amount of time, even though you haven't even tipped it up yet, season ticket sales are booming right now. Four-win fans are about to come in. You mentioned fundraising, you mentioned facilities. What is your message to the Maroon Maniacs and these New Rochelle fans that are dying to get to the point to where they could see your team play live? What are they going to see this year?
I think look, the first year is always the most difficult. Now, I'm not making excuses. I'm not telling you we're going to be a bad basketball team. Our goal is to win a national championship every year we step on the court. Is that realistic? Who knows? But that we all dream the same way. We all put our uniform on thinking we're going to be great. It's a difficult task in the first year. Very, very difficult. The MAAC, if you said to me who's going to be good in the MAAC, I have outside of Siena, I can't tell you because I haven't studied them yet. So it's going to be very competitive. We have a new team, but we have a senior backcourt. And I didn't mention Colton, by the way. Colton is another senior who's also a backcourt player who's outstanding as well. He's not a great shooter, but he's getting better at it. He's very physical. He's a tough guy. So I've got really good backcourt players. And anytime you have a good backcourt, like I had at Louisville, I had Peyton Siva and Russ Smith, 2 6-foot guards. We had greatness because of it. Only 2 players in the history of the Big East won back-to-back MVPs. In the history, Patrick Ewing and Peyton Siva.
Wow.
So it's, I don't know how good we're going to be. I know the fans are going to love our style of play. They're going to love our defense. They're going to be energized from everything about the program will energize them. We have big dreams. We have big hopes this year, but it is going to take time. It is going. We have to build a program, not just a team.
Well, you talk about building the program, and Coach, I actually have to backtrack and jump in as well because you're not the only one that's forgotten a couple of things. Me and you get talking basketball. I've forgotten a couple of things on my end, so I don't want to get in trouble. The 3 sponsors responsible for this Gael chat, a conversation with Hall of Fame coach Rick Pitino tonight. We'd like to thank Pepe Auto Group, the Hospital for Special Surgery, and Professional Physical Therapy. So thank you for those 3 sponsors for making this. And you talk about.
I want to thank them too because Pepe Motors is great. I had lunch with the man the other day, who's an awesome person. Just met him. Took me for an Italian meal.
Nice.
And he's just an awesome guy. He's behind the program. He's an Iona graduate. I don't know the other people yet, but the alumni here have been awesome to me. Really, really, I go back a long way with Bob LaPenta and Jim Hines. I met Mr. Aragoni the other day, and he stepped right up and helped us with the facilities as well.
Nice.
So many guys. I met a gentleman the other day who was big time. He said, I wish you would have gone to Fordham. He's a big time Fordham. He's friends with Charlie Shoma, who's on our board of trustees. And he said he's his brother-in-law. And all of a sudden we started talking basketball, and he gave me a big donation to Gael basketball. So the people have been awesome. I can't tell you how proud I am to be their head coach.
Well, before we begin wrapping this up, Coach, one last thing for the true hoops junkies that are on there, because you mentioned developing guys before, and you're unique in this sense because player development is such an emphasis of your programs year round. And you've written about it, you've spoken about it, you've lectured about it. I witnessed it firsthand, being able to work for Kevin Willard, and I know other guys like your son Richard and Billy Donovan have made it staples. Take fans behind the scenes of what your players and what these kids have to go through besides the 2 or 3 hours a day you have them in practice in the weight room.
Well, you get 20 hours a week. Back when I was in Providence College, we were putting 20 hours in every 3 days. So I believe in player development. So I had to compete against Duke and Kentucky. They were our 2 chief rivals. They were going after one-and-done basketball players. I was going after first-round draft choices, but had a weakness, whether it was Francisco Garcia, who wasn't ranked in the top 100. Donovan Mitchell was ranked 55 in the nation. Terry Rozier signed $18 million with the Hornets, was ranked 78 in the nation. Montrezl Harrell of the Clippers was ranked 92. Gorky Zhang signing a $60 million contract with the Timberwolves wasn't ranked. Russ Smith wasn't ranked. So I was going after guys I thought could be pros, but they needed something. Donovan Mitchell needed to improve his arc on his jump shot. Rozier needed to play the point better. Gorky Zhang needed to get stronger and bigger like Osborne. Francisco Garcia needed to put on 30 pounds, and he played 11 years in the NBA. So I go after guys that I think have pro potential, but there may be something missing. And player development is the key. Every one of these guys came not because of me, not because of Iona College. They came because they heard about player development. So what we do Monday through Friday, I'll take you and 3 other players at your position, and I bring you in from 9 to 9:45 in between class time, and all I do is work on offensive skills. No defense. Rarely do we work on defense at that period of time. Then from 10 to 10:45, 11 to 11:45, the next 2 groups come in. And all we work on is developing their skills to become a great basketball player. I'm at every one. We do it every single day, Monday through Friday. And we take 45 minutes from that 20-hour week and we put it into their skill development. And it's all high-powered offensive skill development. So we do it as part of our regimen. And, you know, I remember so well, I was speaking so much with morning practice, player development in between classes, giving a speech to alumni or booster clubs at lunchtime at Louisville, then going to, in the afternoon, 2.5-hour practices. One day against Tennessee, and I'll end with this, all of a sudden at halftime, I could hardly speak. My throat, I sounded like Louis Kahn a second. And all of a sudden, I tried to drink some water in a Gatorade, and blood's gushing out. I filled up the whole Gatorade cup with blood. We played a second half Tennessee. They fly me to the Cleveland Clinic.
Oh, my God.
They thought it was something really, really serious. What was happening, I was coaching so many hours a day that I was breaking all the membranes everywhere and started bleeding. So I started wearing a microphone in practice, and instantaneously it stopped by wearing the microphone. So I didn't sound like Marlon Brando in The Godfather anymore. I had a voice by wearing a microphone. So player development is the key to our program. Right now, you got Asante Gist, good shooter. He's got to be a great shooter, but he spreads his legs too much. So we got to get his legs in. That takes away from your range. Isaiah Ross can't go right very well. We got to get him to go right better. Got to get him to pass the ball better off a paint touch. Dylan's got to get a lot stronger, and we got to get him to finish better around the rim when he becomes eligible. Obviously, Osborne has got so much to learn, so much to improve, but every guy has a weakness that we got to work on. Some have multiple weaknesses. And the player development sessions, when you do it 5 times a week, everybody gets better. I've had walk-ons have been the keys to championship. Anthony Epps, my starting point guard, I made a mistake. I had one of the most dominant teams in the history of the game in 96, was voted the best team ever to play at Kentucky. The 96 championship team will be 25 years this year.
Wow. 8
NBA players on that team. My second unit could have won the national championship.
Yep.
That's the team that scored 86 points at LSU on the road. Their margin of victory was 22 points in the SEC as well as the whole thing. They were awesome. My 13th man played 19 years in the NBA, Nazir Mohammed. So player development was key. And my walk-on, Anthony Epps, was the starting point guard because I made a mistake trying to play Tony Delk there. We lost to Massachusetts early in the season, and then we went on a run that's legendary. Against Wichita State, we're struggling. We can't make shots. I put a walk-on in named Tim Henderson. He makes 2 threes, gets us back in the game. If it wasn't for Tim Henderson, we don't win the national championship. A walk-on. Cameron Mills in the Final Four, walk-on from Lexington, carried us into the Final Four. So every guy is important with player development. And that young man, Tim Henderson, today, they no longer call him Tim. They no longer call him Henderson. They call him Wichita. He'll live on forever. Well, I just want to say I'm super excited. I'm more passionate today at 68 than I was at 38. I don't want revenge in my life at certain people. Everybody thinks I've got this huge chip on my shoulder. I have a boulder on my shoulder, but it's not for revenge. My boulder is to take Iona College to levels that we all dream about. Because every single coach that's coached here has been happy and successful. I'm replacing a guy who did an awesome job. But every coach here has had fun, done an awesome job. The only difference is they used it as a stepping stone. I'm using it to climb this mountain, stay up there, and retire. So it's a little bit different for me. It's no stepping stones for me. This is my last stop. It's a glorious stop at a special place, and I'm super, super excited.
That's great, Coach. And we talk so much great basketball. That was a great final message to the fans. And as we wrap it right here, I just want to hit you with one final trivia question because I'm friends with your son, Richard. We like to bust chops on text messages a lot. Better chance of the Gaels going to Minneapolis or you getting Richard out to the Big Apple one day?
I said to him today, I said, look, we have a game open. Do you want to play us? And I'm giving it to you verbatim now. I said, we'll come to you. You come back to next year. He said, well, Dad, we can't play non-conference games right now. Don't have a season. I said, well, Richard, see if you can. Get us now because you won't beat us next year.
Said perfectly. Well, thank you, Coach. This was great. I know that the Iona College alumni appreciated this, and I'll give you the floor for one last message to the fans, but thank you so much for taking this time in such a busy time of the year to celebrate this virtual homecoming here at the college.
Well, I just want to leave you with what I said earlier about the glass. Iona, when you go to Iona College, you don't have a silver spoon in your mouth. You're someone who's grown up with parents that love you, but they've worked hard to send you to Iona College. And you look at guys like Al Kelly, the head of Visa, and you look at Bob LaPenta at the business school, or Jim Hines, and Mr. Aragone, all these successful business people, they love Iona. They bleed Iona. And that's really, really important because when you go to Iona College, you have that PhD. You're not nobody's giving you anything. But always look at it when you wake up, understand how special it is to be a Gael. And when you look at it, that the glass is half full, remember that's not enough. Just having a positive attitude is not enough. You got to fill up that glass to the brim. And that's where you got to get creative. Your work ethic can't be ordinary. It has to be extraordinary. So don't look at the glass being half full. You fill up that damn cup. You're an Iona Gael.
Coach, thank you. This has been great, and we hope to see you soon.
All right. Take care.
Good luck this season. And thank you again to our sponsors, Hospital for Special Surgery, Professional Physical Therapy, Pepe Auto Group. I'm Vin Parise. It was an honor to sit down with Coach. And thank you to all of the Iona College alumni that made this weekend possible. I'm going to pass it now to Kelly Byer in the Office of Alumni Events. Take it away, Kelly.
Thank you, Vin, and thank you, Coach. I mean, honestly, if I was more energized for basketball season, I don't think I could sleep until then. So I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So I would like to extend a personal thank you to everyone who joined us today, whether it was live, on demand, or you're watching right now. And I would also like to extend a thank you to the Alumni and Advancement Team. Paul Cetera, Pamela Baki, class of 92, Christina Nassi and Pesco, class of 2016, and Annie McGinnis. And a very, very special thank you to our partners in athletic communications, Brian Byer, class of 2001, Jonathan Stanko, 2014 and 2020, Jack Clark, 2017, and Garrett Murray, 2019. A whole bunch of Gaels, a whole bunch of alumni. We couldn't do it without you. And thank you, everyone, and go Gaels.